They told you success is the prize, but they never told you who built the game. From the moment you could walk, you were being programmed. Quietly. Precisely. Like a machine made for performance. You were taught to chase things, gold stars, trophies, applause, not because you needed them, but because someone, somewhere, needed you to need them. This wasn't education. This was conditioning. Your first taste of validation came not from being, but from doing. Sit still. Raise your hand. Score high. Make them proud. From that moment, your worth became a scoreboard. And every time you hit a goal, they moved the goalpost. You didn't notice it at first. You thought this was growth, maturity, success. But the truth was far colder. You were being turned into fuel. Fuel for a machine you don't control. A system built not to empower, but to extract. See, success wasn't always a ladder. That image was manufactured, marketed. The real elite, the ones who built the system, they don't climb ladders. They own the building. And they sell you the illusion of movement so you never look at the walls closing in. And when you finally start to feel it, that quiet dread in your chest, the one that says, something's off, you're told it's your fault. You didn't hustle hard enough, meditate long enough, manifest strong enough. They feed you optimization when what you really need is liberation. But let me tell you something dangerous. Something they won't say in schools, in seminars, or in viral podcasts. The more you want success, the less you get it. Not because wanting is weak, but because what you're taught to want was never yours to begin with. You're chasing ghosts, reflections in someone else's mirror. And the deeper you chase, the more you forget who you were before you needed to become someone. Let that haunt you. Because in the silence behind the applause lurks the truth no one dares to say out loud. You were never broken. The system is. They dressed it in motivation. They sold it as self-improvement. But what they built was a psychological empire of applause. The system doesn't need you awake. It needs you obedient. Not by force, by illusion. And the most powerful illusion they've created? That your value increases with visibility. That the more eyes on you, the more you matter. You don't chase success anymore. You chase witnesses to it. The algorithm has become your god. The likes, the followers, the performance metrics, your commandments. And the moment you begin to lose them, you don't feel free. You feel empty, anxious, invisible. Because now you're not just working for money or survival. You're working to be seen. But here's what they never told you. Visibility is not power. It's surveillance dressed as validation. They watch you, measure you, predict you, sell you. And the more successful you appear, the more trapped you become in a role you never chose. Now you can't stop. Because everything is tied to the mask. Your job, your relationships, your identity. So you keep smiling, posting, grinding, branding yourself until there's nothing left but curated fragments. But late at night, when the screens are off and the likes stop pouring in, you feel it. This is not who I am. That whisper isn't weakness. It's memory. The memory of a self that existed before the applause. A self that didn't need permission to feel whole. You were taught to fear silence, because in silence the mask falls off. And when it does, what's left? A question most men avoid their whole lives. Who am I without the performance? And that question is the beginning of your rebellion. Because once you stop needing their applause, you become dangerous. You become something they can't predict, market, or control. Not a product, not a persona, but a presence. And presence is what the empire fears most. They didn't just build a game. They built a cathedral of control, brick by brick, belief by belief. And you? You were handed a blueprint before you could speak. Work hard. Play fair. Climb the ladder. Earn your worth. Sounds noble. Righteous even. But look closer. This wasn't about empowering you. It was about domesticating you. Because the most efficient way to control a man is to make him believe he's choosing the leash himself. You wake up to alarms. You schedule your joy. You monetize your passion. And when you burn out, they don't ask why. They ask what's wrong with you. You've been told this is freedom, just with more structure. But what is freedom really when every thought has been pre-selected? Your goals? Installed. Your standards? Engineered. Your aspirations? Imported from people you'll never meet. And so you grind. For what? A promotion? A car? A slightly better cage? This isn't self-improvement. It's self-erasure. A slow sacrifice of soul at the altar of productivity. But here's the part they never explain. Every system needs belief to survive. And belief isn't about truth, it's about obedience. So they weaponize your ambition. Turn it into a whip you use against yourself. You chase growth while your spirit shrinks. You pursue excellence while your presence disappears. They don't need to imprison your body if they can colonize your mind. And so they've done it. Your schedule? Not yours. Your thoughts? Not yours. Even your desires? Not yours. Because when you control what a man wants, you never need to control what he does. He'll march willingly. He'll sacrifice his peace. He'll burn his life to the ground in search of a throne that doesn't exist. But listen carefully. If any part of you has ever felt the hollowness after hitting a goal, if you've ever stood in your so-called success and felt more lost than ever, that was not failure. That was awakening. The system calls it burnout. A glitch. A phase. But it's not. It's your soul revolting. And the deeper that revolt goes, the more clearly you'll see. This was never your game. They love the phrase self-made. It sounds heroic, noble, masculine. But it's a myth. A myth designed to isolate you and keep you obedient. Because if they convince you that everything depends on your effort alone, they never have to admit the game is rigged. They don't mention the invisible scaffolding. How your zip code, your parents, your trauma, your skin, your timing, your culture, all shape the road you walk. They just hand you a mirror and say, if you're not winning, it's because of you. And you believe them. Because you're built to take responsibility, to carry weight, to push through. But that weight? It was never meant to make you strong. It was meant to break you quietly. You call it discipline. They call it compliance. And the higher you climb, the more isolated you become. Because the myth of the self-made man doesn't just promise freedom. It demands loneliness. It says, never ask for help. Never pause. Never admit you're unsure. Because the moment you do, the illusion collapses. And they can't have that. So they reward you with shallow praise. Another follower. Another handshake. Another zero on your paycheck. But what they never give you is rest. Because if you rested long enough to reflect, you might start to notice the walls. The script. The fact that your ladder only reaches higher into a system that feeds on your exhaustion. And that's the secret. They never wanted you to win. They just needed you to keep playing. You were raised not to build yourself, but to brand yourself. To curate an image, not cultivate a soul. And in chasing that image, you lost the very thing that made you whole. So here's your first key of liberation. You are not self-made. You are self-buried under layers of conditioning, expectation, and inherited beliefs. And it's not more ambition you need. It's a funeral, a burial for the mask. Only then can the real self emerge. Not the one you created for applause. The one you forgot existed. But who's been waiting in the silence? Every system has a currency. In ancient kingdoms, it was gold. In modern empires, it's attention. But in the architecture of control you live in today, the true currency is your desire. Whoever controls what you crave owns your mind. And make no mistake, your cravings were engineered. Not just by ads, by institutions, by childhood, by every book you were told to read, every celebrity you were taught to admire, every ambition that got you praised. From the beginning, you were conditioned to want things that served the machine, not your soul. A better job, a bigger house, a better body. You weren't choosing. You were programmed. And here's the most sinister part. The more you desire, the more you become a product. Sold to companies. Sold to systems. Sold to your own compulsions. You become predictable, clickable, profitable. Not because you're weak, but because the game was never neutral. It was always tilted to turn men into consumers of life, not creators of it. Even your suffering is monetized. Burnout? There's a wellness product for that. Loneliness? An app for that. Anxiety? A course, a supplement, a sedative. And the more you chase comfort, the more enslaved you become. Because comfort is not freedom. It's the velvet handcuff. And here's the lie. They told you that desire would elevate you. That wanting more is a sign of progress. That dissatisfaction means you're ambitious. But what if that's the trap? What if your endless hunger is not a flaw, but the system working perfectly? Because the more you chase, the less you question. The more you consume, the less you create. And that's exactly what they want. A man who's too distracted to wake up. But here's where the script breaks. If you want to become free, you must stop desiring what was never yours. And if that hits something deep inside you, comment the phrase, "I release the script" below. And then comment it again. Lock it in. Let it echo. Let it be the beginning of your return. Because the first act of rebellion is not louder desire. It's sacred indifference to what the system told you to want. They say identity is who you are. But what if it's who you were told to be? From childhood, you were handed labels like inheritance. Smart. Lazy, gifted, stubborn. Not truths, just tattoos. Etched by systems that needed you categorized to control you. School carved it first. Grades became value. Obedience became virtue. Rebellion became threat. Then came society, telling you what a real man looks like, how he talks, what he earns, what he owns. And somewhere in the performance of becoming that man, you forgot you were ever something else. That's not growth. That's manufacturing. You became a product, an output, a resume, an Instagram bio. A man who stopped asking, what do I know to be true? Because truth doesn't trend. And your real identity? It isn't marketable. It can't be sold. It can't be captured in a 30-second reel or corporate elevator pitch. It lives in the silence behind the noise, the part of you that remembers who you were before the system told you who to become. But reclaiming that identity is terrifying, because it means burning the script. It means walking away from the approval you've spent years chasing. It means asking questions that shake foundations. Who profits from my insecurity? Why was I told I had to earn my worth? Who benefits when I stay in character? And the most dangerous question of all, who am I when I stop performing? They never wanted you to ask that, because a man who no longer identifies with the system can no longer be manipulated by it. He becomes unpredictable, not in rebellion, in presence, grounded, still, awake. You don't need a new identity. You need to remember the one you buried beneath performance. And once you see that, really see it, the whole empire begins to crack. Because this factory doesn't collapse when men shout. It collapses when men remember. Every man wears a mask, not out of deceit, but survival. At first it's harmless, a little polish, a little armor. You wear it to get through meetings, to impress dates, to fit in at the gym. But over time the mask stops being a choice. It becomes a habit, then a prison. You start smiling when you want to scream, nodding when you want to walk away, posting when you feel hollow. And slowly, without realizing it, you vanish behind the image. You wake up one day and realize you don't know who you are without the role. The achiever, the provider, the strong one, the always in control one. But here's the horror. The longer you wear the mask, the more the world rewards you for it. You get the job, you get the girl, you get the house, but none of it touches you. Because it wasn't you who earned it. It was the mask. And that's when the rot sets in. You look around at your life and feel like an actor trapped in a role he can't quit. And that quiet despair is not depression. It's dissonance. The gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be. And the world will tell you to fix it with more effort, more hustle, more therapy, more optimization. But you don't need a better mask. You need to take it off. Let the applause fade. Let the performance collapse. Because the most radical act in a world built on image is to be real. Real doesn't always look impressive. It doesn't trend. It doesn't win the room. But it breathes, feels, it connects. And once you taste that kind of presence, the mask becomes unbearable. You start craving silence over attention, truth over likes, solitude over performance. And that's how you begin to remember. You were never meant to be admired. You were meant to be alive. They will do anything to keep you distracted. Because stillness is where the real war begins. Not the war outside you. The one within. The system isn't afraid of chaos. It thrives in it. Noise is profitable. Confusion is manageable. But stillness? Stillness is dangerous. Because when a man sits in silence long enough, he begins to hear something the world fears. His own voice. Not the one that parrots quotes from books. Not the one that performs confidence. The one underneath. Raw. Undeniable. Older than his name. It doesn't speak in sentences. It speaks in knowing. And it says things like, this life isn't mine. These goals aren't real. This path isn't aligned. I'm tired of pretending. That voice doesn't want more. It wants true. And so the world turns up the volume. Scroll more. Click more. Chase more. Consume more. Anything to keep you from stopping. Because in stillness, illusions collapse. You start to see through the matrix, not as a metaphor, but as a lived reality. Every ad, every platform, every opportunity that promised fulfillment, you see them now for what they are. Noise, layered over silence, to keep you from hearing your truth. And yet, stillness is painful at first, feels like dying. Because in a way, it is the death of who you thought you had to be. But if you endure it, if you sit long enough in the burning quiet, something shifts. You stop craving escape. You stop chasing intensity. You begin to feel the depth in simple things. Breath, ground, real human connection. And in that moment, unmarked, unsponsored, uncelebrated, you wake up, not as a brand, not as a performer, not as a seeker, but as a man, unplugged, unfolding, unapologetically whole. The noise outside will never stop, but once you find the stillness within, you'll never be owned by it again. They told you to chase your highest self, to become your best version, to upgrade, level up, reinvent, but they never told you the truth. The addiction to becoming is the deepest form of self-rejection, because buried in every obsession with improvement is the belief that who you are now isn't enough, not good enough, not whole enough, not worthy of love, peace, or presence until you change. And that's the tragedy. The more you chase transformation, the more you lose contact with what's real. You spend years sculpting a version of yourself the world will applaud, only to wake up exhausted in a body that no longer feels like home. You call it progress, but deep down you feel it. You're becoming fitter but emptier, smarter but more disconnected, more attractive but less alive. You see, this game of becoming? It's a treadmill with no end. Each upgrade reveals a new flaw. Each milestone becomes a mirror, reflecting the next thing you must fix. It never stops, because it was never designed to end in peace. It was designed to keep you chasing. And the more obsessed you become with growth, the more you begin to hate your current self, the self that's already breathing, already whole, already sacred. But here's the forbidden truth. The self you're trying to become doesn't exist. It's a moving target, a phantom built from advertisements, influencers, societal expectations. You will never become him, because he was never real. And so the question becomes, what if you stopped trying to become and started learning how to be? Not as a monk, not as a slogan, but as a practice of radical honesty. What if you looked in the mirror and said, I'm not here to be perfect, I'm here to be real? Because only when you stop running can you feel what's already inside. And that's when the healing begins. Not when you change, but when you come home to what was never broken. You thought success would save you, make you whole, make you seen, make you safe, but instead, it made you a prisoner. Not in chains but in golden walls. Not in silence but in applause. The trap wasn't failure. The trap was that you succeeded and still felt empty. That's the secret no one wants to admit. Success doesn't set you free. It raises the stakes. Now you can't be vulnerable, because you've got something to lose. Now you can't slow down, because the image must be maintained. Now you can't say, I'm tired, confused, breaking, because you've already become the man others admire. But admiration is not the same as intimacy, and performance is not the same as peace. So you keep going. You double down, scale up, expand, because what else is there? You already climbed the mountain, and there was no summit, just fog and silence. And that's when the truth starts whispering. Maybe the whole mountain was a lie, because real success, the kind that nourishes, anchors, connects, it doesn't demand your soul in exchange. It doesn't require masks or exhaustion. It doesn't whisper, you're almost there, again and again until you die with your fists still clenched. The success you've been sold? It's not achievement. It's addiction, to growth, to praise, to control. And every time you feed it, you lose a little more of your center. Here's the paradox. The only way to win the game is to walk away from the board entirely, to stop playing by rules that were never designed for your liberation, to stop mistaking money for meaning, status for security, applause for love. Because the moment you stop chasing, you remember, you were never meant to chase. You were meant to choose. And your power? It begins not when you rise above others, but when you return to yourself. You've been told your struggle is noble, that your sacrifice is honorable, that your burnout is just part of the journey. But what if it's not? What if your exhaustion is by design? What if the system was never built for your freedom, but for your function? Because if you take a step back and ask the one question they never want you to ask, who benefits from my endless striving? The mask cracks. The gears behind the curtain begin to show. It's not just corporations. It's not just governments. It's the machine itself, an ecosystem of control, rooted in your discontent. The economy grows when you feel lacking. The media profits when you feel afraid. The platform thrives when you compare, compete, consume. So they keep you tired, because tired men don't revolt. They keep you busy, because busy men don't question. They keep you chasing, Because chasing men don't remember where they came from. And in return, they give you toys, a promotion, a badge, a trophy, a lifestyle, all while your soul starves. Because no one profits from your peace. No one profits from your silence. No one profits from a man who says, I already have enough. You were trained to produce, but never trained to pause. You were taught to climb, but never taught to ask where the ladder leads. You were conditioned to obey the clock, but never invited to feel the moment. And now you're waking up. And that's what they fear. Because a man who sees the system can no longer be ruled by it. He doesn't scream. He doesn't argue. He simply exits, not with noise, but with knowing. A quiet, grounded withdrawal from the performance. And in that silence is the beginning of something ancient. A power that doesn't shout. A truth that doesn't bend. A man who's done pretending, and finally dangerously alive. You've climbed. You've chased. You've performed. You've suffered. And now you're here. Not at the top, but at the threshold. Because true transformation isn't another step up. It's a step in. They told you the end goal was success. But what if the goal was you all along? Not the upgraded version. Not the curated image. Not the brand. The man beneath the mask. The boy who once played without needing to prove. The soul who knew how to rest without guilt. He's still there. Buried, yes, but not broken. And now he's stirring. You've seen behind the curtain. You've felt the silence underneath the noise. You've watched the ladder disintegrate beneath your feet. And in that collapse, a strange thing happens. You stop falling. And you start remembering. Not through effort, but through stillness. Through breath. Through the unlearning of everything you were taught to want. You begin to move differently. You say no more often. Not from rebellion, but from clarity. You stop proving. Because you no longer need to be seen to know you exist. You choose depth over optics. Solitude over spectacle. Simplicity over status. And in doing so, you become something rare. A man who has exited the game, but still walks among the players. A man who doesn't shout to be heard, because his presence is the message. A man who doesn't chase power, because he has remembered the source within. You are not an asset. You are not a resource. You are not a machine. You are not here to win the game. You are here to wake up from it. And if you've made it this far, you already have. So let the world keep spinning. Let the noise keep screaming. You've returned. And no one, no system, no screen, no empire can take that from you. Candle now comment, I have returned below, twice. Let the algorithm carry it. Let your brothers see it. Let the signal spread. Because when one man remembers, others follow. And the moment a generation awakens, the empire trembles.